Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is Brendan Magnan, Chair of the Milford Inland Wetlands Agency. I'd like to call to order the July 2nd, 2025 regular meeting of the Inland Wetlands Agency. Lisa, could you please call the roll?
Dan Bedecker,
Here.
Renji Bahav, Brian Black,
Here.
Jim Connors, Matthew Connors,
Here.
Steve Munson, Nick Ritchie, Julie Valvo,
Here.
Buddy Field, Ray Gradwell,
Here.
Brendan Magnan.
Here. Thank you. Mr. Gradwell, could you please serve as voting alternate this evening?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Yep.
Great. Thank you. So we do have a quorum, and at this time, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance that this meeting, in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont's executive orders, is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Milford website. We're actually streaming on YouTube as we speak as well. During this meeting, if members of the Inland Wetlands Commission would like to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature. Once recognized by me, the chair, please state your name and address before making a statement. Actually, sorry, just to clarify, the name and address is only required for members of the public or the applicant. And as a reminder, we're only here to speak to the wetlands, brooks, rivers, flooding, and habitat of wetlands. Zoning issues are not under our purview. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand with me. If Mayor Rose, could you please share the flag? We will, if you could unmute yourselves and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America
and to the
and
republic
nation
for
which
which
stands
one
one
nation,
under God,
with
indivisible,
liberty and justice
liberty,
for all.
liberty, and justice for all.
If everyone can mute themselves, I would invite Mayor Rose to, I'm sorry, before that, open it up for public comments. If there's anyone here from the public that would like to address the agency on topics not otherwise on the agenda. Is there anyone here wishing to address the agency on topics not otherwise on the agenda? And going for the third time, no, hearing none. Moving on to item D1. Mayor Rose, can you please introduce item D1?
Item D1 is IWC 25006. It's 0 Cascade Boulevard. This was a violation that was issued on 5/12/25. At our last meeting, the agency decided to wait until the plantings had become established before considering releasing the violation. Mr. Pucci has stated he has someone watering the plants daily to ensure that they become established. I would recommend no action on this until at least the next meeting.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Any questions from the agency? Seeing none, moving on to item D2, please. Mary Rose, could you introduce this one?
Yes. Sorry, computer locked up a little bit. There we go. Item D2, it's IW 250029. It's 83 East Rutland Road. It's a proposal for a 20-unit 830G development with construction, stormwater improvement, grading within 150 feet of a wetland and water course in the Wetwater watershed. There are no wetlands on the site. The approximate distances from the proposed improvements to the offsite wetlands are in my notes. Silt fencing is about 39 feet away. The grading and landscaping wall is about 41 feet away. The edge of parking is 49 feet away. Closest building is 55 feet, and stormwater is 80 feet, sorry. The last meeting, the agency had questions. They proposed extending the applicant proposed extending the landscaping wall to create wildlife barrier from the adjacent open space on the Muse property and a wetland and a wildlife seed mixture for the revised area behind the wall. These items and a snow storage plan have been added to the revised plan set and uploaded to the meeting documents, as well as the city engineer's revised comments. We had asked the applicant to review the city engineer's concerns involving stormwater and snow storage, and the agency's concerns on impacts in the upland review area. Mr. Wasmer spoke with the city engineer and submitted a letter to him on stormwater and snow storage. The city engineer's updated memo is in the meeting documents. Item B calls for snow removal operation plan to be submitted. And item D states that the stormwater mitigation appears to be satisfactory. This evening, we have Ron Wasmer of Connecticut Civil Group and Matt Pop of Environmental Land Solutions to answer questions on the project.
Brendan, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If everyone else can go on mute while, yep, there's a little bit of background noise. Thank you. Before I introduce, or before Mr. Wasmer speaks, Rose, can you just remind us, we received the application on June 6th. What is the time frame for making a decision statutorily? Sorry, you're on mute.
We received the application on the June 4th meeting, and we're discussing it this evening. We have not received a petition. We would need to make a decision, hold a public hearing, or ask for an extension of time by August 8th.
And this evening, what are our options? We can ask questions, we can request
Additional information, schedule a site walk, schedule a public hearing. Again, we've had no petition, or take no action.
Or make a motion to approve or deny.
Make a motion to approve or deny. I apologize. Those weren't on there.
Right. Okay. Just want to make sure we're clear on that. Okay. My video is coming in and out. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Mr. Wasmer, do you want to add anything to the record?
Sure. Ronald Wasmer for the record, with an office at 158 Research Drive. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor. I'll give you a brief summary of the additional information.
Great.
So primarily the plans were a revised hydrology study was submitted to the agency and the city engineer. There was generally no changes to the design. A supplemental page was added to the report. It was called a summary sheet, and this clarified some of the questions that the city engineer had. And in his latest memo, he states that the stormwater mitigation appears to be satisfactory. A separate sheet was added to the plan set that you now have. It's sheet S10. It's a snow storage plan. On this plan, we indicate locations for snow storage, and on the right side of this plan, there's some calculations as to the volume of snow that can be stored in various locations, as well as some additional comments that the city engineer was asking for to ensure that this applicant or the future owners of this property understand that there's a management plan for snow removal, storage. This plan demonstrates that we can store approximately a 12-inch snowstorm. In the event that we get a larger storm, the snow would be removed off-site. A couple other minor changes. If we look at sheet SP1, so this plan, we've added a couple bits of information. In the northeast corner, we've extended the landscape retaining wall to intersect the existing stone wall. That was a suggestion of the commission, as well as the biologist, Matt Pop, who again is here this evening. let's see, we've added a note about the seeding of meadow mix in the northwest and the northeast corner. And then we've added a note requiring signage along the proposed stockade fence that runs along the rear of the property to be these signs to state caution wetlands beyond this fence, no dumping. So an additional notification. The fence will certainly serve, both the landscaping wall and the fence will serve as a physical barrier, but then the signage will clearly spell out to someone that's unaware that there's wetlands on the other side of the fence, which they're not directly on the other side, but you're aware that it's 40, 50 feet away. So those are my comments. I don't know if Matt wants to chime in, or if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Wasmer. Mr. Pop, do you want an opportunity to add anything to the record?
Good evening. I'm Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist, environmental land solutions. The only thing I would add is we added that small section of wall from the retaining wall to the existing wall. I think maybe right where it meets the existing wall, maybe we want to remove, 2 feet of the existing wall, so any turtles that may walk up in there don't get trapped in that V-shaped area. So right there.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Pop. That was going to be one of my questions. Okay.
On the plan, it becomes obvious.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Pop. Any questions from the agency? Mr. Black.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It was mentioned a couple times and in the engineer's report about a detailed operation plan for the snow storage if it exceeds the limit on the plans. Is that something that is in the works?
I believe we saw that on the plan when Mr. Wasmer was speaking to it. Mary Rose, can you go back to that section of the plan? Is that, I believe that's at least
sheet
my
10.
I believe that may be addressing your question. Yes.
Yeah, but in keynote number in C, it said alternate measure the employed stockpile reaches capacity. In the event the multiple snowstorms occurring prior to melting, or that snowstorm of greater volume can accommodate excess snow will be moved off site. Does that need an operations plan to move that off site?
I would ask the question to maybe Mr. Connors, Mr. Jim Connors. Normally, what do we do there for Mary Rose? Is that usually sufficient, or I kind of defer to you guys on that part? Mr. Jim Connors, you're on mute. This is your expertise. You're on mute, Jim. Mary Rose, can you unmute him by any chance? There you
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
I just got into the meeting. It wouldn't let me in. What was the question, Brennan?
Mr. Black is asking about Article C, and it refers to if the snowstorm volume is greater than the stockpiles can handle, it would have to be removed off-site. And is it sufficient?
In the real world, what would happen is some of the parking places would get taken up with a pile of snow.
Yeah.
That's the real world. Everybody says it's going to get trucked off site. I've never seen it happen. And it just used parking places for the bigger pile of snow in the real world.
Appreciate that. Mr. Black, I don't know if you have another comment or.
No, that's understandable. I guess I'm still wondering if there's an actual plan, or is this just kind of it'll be taken care of.
Well, it's said all the time, there's a plan to truck the snow, but it normally does not happen because the snow plower is going to pile it up and they're going to pile it high with a machine if they have to, higher than a plow, and that's where it's going to stay because it's very expensive to truck it off site. And where do you truck it to? Because the city won't let you even dump it into a launching ramp because it'll contaminate the salt water.
Yeah, I'm okay with leaving it as and not over engineering it in the sense. Not sure if anyone else wants to weigh in, but I think it's a sort of an exception to an exception. Mary Rose, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Sorry, through you. Typically that's what happens. It gets piled higher. If we have, when we had the blizzard, I think we were talking, it was 10 years ago, we had that blizzard. Then extraordinary measures are taken and things start getting trucked places, but people have to make arrangements to take their snow elsewhere, and worry about the contaminants on that other site. So there's a lot of moving parts that we could write down in a document, but if we don't have another blizzard for 10 years, will those contracts, et cetera, exist? I think the purpose for having this on a plan, and we'll have that in a paper document that'll be added to our conditions, so that's visible on the deed, is so that people are aware that they need to make a plan.
Agreed. I think that's sufficient. I don't think we can regulate it beyond that, though. I think it's definitely a great question to ask, Mr. Buck. Again, back to Mr. Connors, because we kind of defer to you on these.
Yeah.
You were in late. Mary Rose, can you just kind of show the plan itself as to how the applicant has proposed it, and do you have any observations or comments around those?
Looking at the plan where it's showing snow 5, but never get pushed into there in 100 years because snow doesn't like to go around corners. Snow 6 will get snow pushed in. Snow 5 again, possibly, but they're going to end up using those parking spaces because you get over a few inches of snow, and in that parking lot, you're going to have a lot of volume by the time it pushes all the way down there.
There seems to
So
be 3 snow 5s.
there's snow 5 and there's snow 5. It's the 2 corner islands at the end of the parking space. Snow 6 is in the center.
Right, but there's
At the
actually
bottom of the plan.
3 snow 5s.
Well, the snow is going to get pushed. Yeah, well, those side ones, very little snow is going to end up there. Snow pushes straight, basically. And it's going to be pushed down right at the end of that driveway where it's going out on the. I'm looking at Buddy's or the plan on East Rutland Road. Thought we were talking about the apartment. But even so, it's going to get pushed into those parking places. In a normal snowstorm, they'll handle it. And in a big snowstorm, no, they won't.
Yeah. Okay. And then, Mary Rose, can you just show us the exchange from the engineer and just the kind of confirmation from him acknowledging that he is satisfied?
Well, what you're seeing now is the city engineer's memo from July 26th.
June
It's
26th.
June 26th, I apologize. Enumerates what he looked at and each of his steps. I've settled here on the recommendations, although I can run through the whole memo if you'd like.
No, that's fine. Okay, I see Article C, as was testified by Mr. Wassmer. Okay. Any other questions from the agency?
One question, is there extra parking places in this plan other than like visitor parking places?
Yes, there are. So the largest snow pile that we proposed is, oh, you had it right there, is the snow number 1. Okay. So those are in excess of the parking and exclusive of
Okay,
electric vehicle charging stations, which we have several of them, maybe 6 or 7. You did comment, or Brendan commented that there's 3 areas labeled as snow number 5. So the reason that there's 3 of them is they're all generally the same size, and on the right side of the plan, we kind of defined the dimensions of those piles. So you'll see snow number 5 times 3.
how big are those number 5 areas, Ron?
about 600 cubic feet. So like 15 by 15 by, I think I went about 4.5, 5 feet tall. None of them are excessively tall. Maybe number one is 7 feet tall, 6 feet tall.
Okay, well, the ones that are one's gonna take the most of it, truthfully, and I'm
Yes.
not against it, but those end parking spaces, because the snowplower is gonna push straight down those driveways first, and then he's gonna clean out the
Well,
parking area.
again, this is for a 12-inch storm, which is not really a frequent storm in Milford, but
No, 4 to
but in
6
the,
is
in the event that we get a 12-inch storm, they could bring a loader in here to move the stuff around more so than just a plow. So,
Yeah, okay, no problem. Because we end up, as you know, our complex, we end up doing the same thing.
thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions unrelated to the snow shelves? Okay, what's the prerogative of the agency? It sounds like we have an understanding of the application. We've discussed it. We've asked numerous questions. The applicant has made numerous improvements based on the discussions, including the acknowledgement of the fence for the turtle. Maros, how would we address, if we were inclined to make a motion in favor of this, how would we address Mr. Pop's comment tonight that the plan would need to reflect that there would be this gap for the turtle not to get caught in that V? Would that be just a condition of approval?
That can be a condition of approval. That can be added, saying something to the effect of, landscaping, minor landscaping changes per the landscape architect.
Yeah. Thank you for
I
that.
have a comment, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mossman.
You can make the statement that the connection of the landscape wall to the stone wall will be done at the direction of the wetland biologist.
Thank you for that suggestion. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Partner.
Sounds good.
Great. I'm pleased with the modifications. I'm assuming, since there's no other questions, we're in the position to take an action. Is there someone that would like to make a motion?
I can make the motion.
Go ahead.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chairman, I move, after duly considering all relevant factors, I move to approve application IW-25-0029, 83 East Rutland Road, based on the plans entitled Site Plans 8-30G, Affordable Housing, Project 83 East Rutland Road, Milford, Connecticut, by CT Civil Group, LLC. 10 sheets 1 through 9, dated 5/19/25, revised 6/27/25. Sheet 10, dated 6/27/25. The information in the file and presented this evening for the following reasons. This action will not have an impact or effect on the physical characteristics of the adjacent wetlands and watercourses, with conditions including the permittee will submit a construction plan prior to taking out the permit, soil erosion and sedimentation controls as outlined on the plans and in the CT-DEP 2024 erosion and sedimentation control guidelines must be installed and maintained on the site until the property is stabilized. Wetland notification to be placed on the as-built and in the property deed to give notification to property owners that the permits are required from the MIWA to work on the site. Compliance with the city engineer's requirements for stormwater, and then adjustments made to the landscaping as guidance by the biologist. That is my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Connors, for the motion, and Mr. Jim Connors seconded the motion. Any further discussion on the motion?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I have to make an amendment there. There was additional that I missed.
No problem. You can make a motion to amend the main motion. Go ahead.
I'm going to make a motion to amend the main motion.
I need a second. Second. Sorry, I lost my place there. Should I repeat the whole motion or should I just add?
No, just the
Okay, I can add.
modification.
Okay,
Just
the modification, if I can, with conditions including a construction plan must be submitted prior to the permit being taken out. A draft calculation for the construction bond must be submitted for review within 90 days of final approvals. A bond to be calculated must be posted with the MIWA for sedimentation and erosion controls, border plantings, and an as-built showing finished 2-foot contour and locating all site structures. The permittee must submit a certification by the project engineer that the completed project meets the design intent of the approval prior to bonds being released. The permit is issued July 2nd, 2025 and expires July 2nd, 2030, unless otherwise provided by statute. That is my motion.
Okay, so that is the amendment to the main motion, seconded by Ms. Valvo. Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, if there's no discussion on the amended motion, we'll vote on that first. Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Julie Valvo, Raymond Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Motion, aye. Okay, the amendment to the motion carries. Now back to the amended motion. Is there any
Daniel Bedecker,
hold on one second. Before we go to a vote, is there any discussion? Is there any need to amend the amended motion with the condition that Mr. Wassmer suggested in relation to the turtle?
That, through you, Mr. Chair, that was added in to the main motion.
Okay, I don't recall. Was that
Yep.
part of your?
Matthew
Okay,
Connors
Yeah.
added in.
I missed that. Sorry. Well done. Okay. If there's no further discussion, hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Julie Valvo, Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. The motion carries as amended unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hoffner. Appreciate your participation. Mr. Pop, appreciate your participation and your expertise. Good luck with the project. Mayor Rose, do you want to introduce item D2, please?
Second.
Does my video keep going in and out? Is it just me or is everybody else having the same issue?
It's flicking.
Yeah, okay.
It's just you.
Okay.
Your volume is fine though.
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate it. Just want to make sure there's no interruption.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, item D2 is IW 250036 34 Buick Avenue. It's a proposal by 34 Buick LLC for a 53 unit building with Connecticut General Statute 830G with construction grading and stormwater within 100 feet of a wetland and water course in the Indian River watershed. There are about 871 square feet of wetlands on the southern portion of the site along Stubby Plain Brook. The closest point to the wetlands on the property the closest point the improvements have on the property is about 82 feet to the driveway entrance. Proposed on the site, wetlands are located on the Wolf Spinnaker property, and the work there is about within 4 feet of the proposed road improvements on Buick Avenue near Cherry Street by the head wall. City engineer has received the plans and hydrology report and anticipates having that report back to us by the end of next week. At our last meeting, the agency called for a public hearing on the 18th of this month and scheduled a site visit for earlier this evening. We held that this afternoon at 5:30. The weather remained clear or overcast and seasonal. Commissioners walked the site along with representatives of the applicant and neighbors from the property and citizens. This evening, we've got attorney Kevin Kersaden engineer Bob Weway from Codaspodi and Associates, Jen Benno of Soil Science and Environmental Services, presenting the application or answering your questions. The presentation will be at the public hearing.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Before I turn it over to the applicant, I do want to amplify that point that Mary Rose just mentioned. If there's questions that the application or that the commission have about this application that you want the applicant to focus on during the public hearing, today would be the opportunity to focus and invite them to focus their attention on those areas. So having just seen the site, I would encourage everybody to, acknowledge areas that you may have concerns about and what you want to hear more about in the hearing that's scheduled for the 18th. So with that in mind, I've just now opened it up to the applicant team to comment if you wanted to add anything else to the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the agency and staff. Attorney Kevin Kersaden for the applicant. My office is at 243 Broad Street here in Milford. We are here to answer any questions you may have or things that you want us to focus on, Mr. Chairman, as you just said. Unless, I defer to we have Jen Benno and we have Bob Weway here, our experts. Bob or Jen, unless you had something you wanted to add, we're here to answer questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kersaden. Appreciate it. Okay, if there's nothing else that the applicant team wants to mention at this time, I'd open it up for any other comments from the agency. Is there any areas of special interest that you would like the applicant to focus on during the hearing?
I have a couple of questions on the paver driveway or parking area.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Jim Connors.
I just a gut feeling that if that paver driveway or parking area is not really super duper remains clean in all the joints from dirt from the tires or whatever, I can't see how it's going to drain that parking lot other than surface draining into the brook. And for what reason did you go with that versus a conventional drainage system with galleys and catch basins, and then ultimately end up in the brook, which doesn't need maintenance as much as the paver driveway, because that's going to need a lot of maintenance to keep functioning?
I think that's a good question. Mr. Weway, do you want to have an opportunity to answer that now, or do you want to answer it during the public hearing, or both?
Yeah, I think the bulk of it will present at the public hearing. I think just to answer the question with regards to why we chose the pavers as opposed to going with a gallery type system, because of the proximity to the wetlands and the stream, and if you take a look at the test hole data, we don't have very deep soils throughout the site to really be able to put a gallery type system in, because typically your galleries are going to be anywhere from 18 inches to 4 feet high, and then by the time you factor in your separating distance to the seasonal groundwater table and then provide sufficient cover over the top, you need pretty deep soils, typically to get that type of a system in. And again, on here, the pavers are going to distribute the stormwater over the entire site. So typically when you put the gallery systems in, all that collected water gets concentrated into, a very small area, whether it be, the galleries or based upon the size of what the galleries are. So by spreading the whole system out over, pretty much the entire site, your groundwater monitor or your mounding, that typically takes place in the system is much less than what you would encounter within a gallery system. To answer your question with regards to maintenance, you should know better than most that there is no system out there that doesn't require maintenance. So if you're doing something with your gallery systems, those require maintenance. The gallery systems typically have some type of pre-treatment system, whether it's a hydrodynamic separator or some other type of filtering mechanism that attempts to clean up the water before going into the galleries. So if you could show me a system out there that doesn't require maintenance, I could make you a millionaire. So, you know, again, there's a lot of different types of best management practices out there. When we went through, you know, the siting considerations and everything else, we felt that this type of a system, now whether it be permeable pavers, porous asphalt, porous concrete, you know, the concept is basically the same. You're taking the stormwater that's hitting the pavement surfaces and getting it underwater, or getting it into the ground to infiltrate very, very quickly without the ancillary stormwater collection system, i.e. catch basins, storm drain pipes, separators, and everything else. So yes, there is going to be maintenance requirements. You know, we did provide a maintenance document in our stormwater report, and we'll certainly go into that in much greater depth during the public hearing presentation.
So, Mr. Weiwei, just for the record, we know it's you, but could you please state your name and address for the...
Yeah, Robert Weiwei, professional engineer with Coda Spodian Associates, 263 Boston Post Road in Orange, Connecticut, on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, thanks. And Mr. Jim Connors, is there any follow-up on that, or do you want...
Yeah, well, yeah, I understand what Bob is saying. It would probably work better if it was a more gravelly soil. I'm not an engineer, so I can't dispute that it will or will not work, but it just was a feeling I had, that's all.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mr. Connors. Mr. Weiwei, to the extent that you can incorporate for the presentation when you're explaining it to us, if you could also just incorporate what considerations went into your selection of this best practice. Specifically, I'm interested to understand, was this system more expensive or less expensive or cost neutral to other considerations in terms of one-time costs and also overall long-term sort of maintenance costs? If you can just kind of help educate the agency, we'd just like to understand, you know, sort of what the considerations were as you considered all these best practice options.
Yes, we could certainly incorporate that into the presentation.
Great, thank you. Mr. Matt Connors, I think you were up next.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just to your point during the site walk, maybe some sort of language of cleaning up that area that had some dumping in it. And I do appreciate the planting list, but also maybe incorporating, you know, just kind of highlighting the fact that there are trees on the property that are being removed, and then highlighting the fact, you know, they are being replaced to a certain extent in within the plans.
Right, so just to echo that, I think that the agency typically on complex applications like this would like to have really clearly have the applicant lay out what trees are being proposed to be altered or removed in any way, what plantings are being proposed. And I myself would just like that to be a topic of focus as well. Having walked through the site, that would be in the area of the roadway and in the, obviously in the water course. And I think just thinking out loud and adding to that sentiment, it would be great if Ms. Benno could, you know, articulate the functions and values and make sure that we're comfortable with the hydrology report insofar as the design of the water treatment and making sure that there's not going to be any adverse impacts on the functions and values of the water courses. I think that would be highly relevant for our review.
Okay. Now, with regards to the trees, are you looking at trees within the 100-foot upland review area or the entire site?
I would let Ms. Benno weigh in on that as it relates to an expert in wetland biology. We obviously regulate the upland review area, but insofar as other impacts, it doesn't seem like canopy would be a factor there, but possibly that one tree that was being discussed on the property adjacent to maybe Mary Rose, you know where I'm talking about. Maybe you could kind of highlight that. It was over, yeah, a little bit north of that. North, maybe? No. Sorry.
Yeah, north. Nope, you're
No,
not.
south.
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 Right
Over
where,
here?
right around there. I think there's a big tree there. I forget what kind of,
Yeah, it's probably close to the 100-foot review line.
yeah. And I would just say, and I'm going to acknowledge Mr. Gradwell in a second, but just while I think about the 100-foot review line, Marrows, it would be great if you can, have the engineer as part of your communication with the engineer, make sure that we're really in touch with all of these complex designs to understand the impacts to the water courses. There's a lot of moving parts here, and there's a lot of considerations. So, being that we're laymen, we don't have those expertise. We really want to make sure that we have adequate input from the city engineer. And I'm not sure, Narrows, you did say he was going to complete his initial review by the end of next week. So that'll be in advance of the public hearing, correct?
True, yes. He anticipates having it completed by his review completed by the end of next week, which would give Mr. Weiwei, a few days, to answer back to him if they need to go back and forth on anything. When you say you want to fully understand and ensure all the impacts to the wetlands and water courses from the proposed development, are you talking about? You had earlier talked about stormwater. You're talking about the impacts and how the stormwater is treated on site. I know Mr. Weiwei went over that a bit at the last meeting. Do you want that expanded upon at the public hearing?
Yes, I think that's what we're really focused on, right? Is the activities in the upland review area and any other activities that would impact the upland review area. Mr. Gradwell, did you want to?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I think you've been talking a lot about what I was kind of discuss a little bit further here. I'd like to hear a little bit from the applicant. And we started that discussion last meeting with respect to the recharge, and it sounds like the porous pavement solution is part of the recharge and getting water back into the ground in lieu of running off quickly and then just and not recharging the groundwater table. So during the hearing, I think we should listen in to Mr. Weiwei and his team talk about that. And then I think we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting too, about how oils and greases are treated. I think Mr. Weiwei talked about how oils and greases are treated as they run off through the porous pavement system. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about this afternoon on the site walk up Buick Avenue, but how the stormwater will be managed on the end of Buick Avenue, where it's going to be reconstructed. Those are kind of the three things I like to hear a little bit more from the applicant on during the public hearing.
Great, thanks, Mr. Gradwell. Yeah, and adding on to that, there was this observation that we discussed with respect to the road, and we're trying to navigate this process. We're not regulating traffic, but at the same time, if the road construction is going to be done in a certain way, and maybe this is a question for you, Mary Rose, is the applicant is responsible for all of that construction activity on the roadway, correct? On behalf of this application. So that is within our review area. And it's, even though it's not their property, help me navigate this. So this is a little bit nuanced, right? They're going to have to secure the rights to do the development. And, we still have regulation authority regardless of who owns the property.
Right.
Mary Rose, This is Attorney Crusaden. When you're done speaking, if I can also make a comment on that. Thanks.
Okay.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the development requires changes to the road. There's easements along the road to do changes if and when they're necessary. Development of this property would necessitate those improvements to the roadway. So yes, we're regulating that work. The reason we walk that, the reason we asked to have it staked, we're regulating that work which is within 100 feet of the off-site wetland, which had been previously flagged, I believe, in 1995.
1990.
The
Right.
closest point there is right by the throat of the roadway where the storm drainage will go into the culvert. It's about 4 feet from the wetland there because the wetland goes right to the culvert, and then pulls away a bit when you come around the curve on Buick Avenue. I think Mr. Crusaden is going to embellish on that.
Great. Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Crusaden.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Rose and Mr. Chair. It's an excellent question, and we've the Buick Ave is a city street, and as part of the development in the area where the billboards are, or there was an approval done years ago for a very similar, I forget exactly how many units, but I think it was a mixed use or something. It was obviously never built. But as part of that approval, the city was given an easement for right-of-way improvements along the area that we're proposing to perform the right-of-way improvements. So I had conversations with the city engineer and the city attorney about this, and they both agreed that the applicant, the city would have the right to do it as the owner of the easement, because they're right-of-way improvements that would be required by the either Public Works or city engineer or possibly Planning and Zoning Commission or board. The applicant has the right, this is the opinion of the city attorney, and the city engineer has the right to make those improvements. But because it is within a certain distance of the upland review area of the wetlands, it does obviously fall under your jurisdiction. So it's almost as if the right-of-way expanded, or the right-of-way technically really does expand like over that city easement, and you can kind of see that easement area. It's almost like a pizza slice triangle on the where Buick Avenue starts. Yeah, right in there. Correct. Yep. So that's how we've discussed it, and that's the city's position on it. And I'm available for any questions about that.
Great. Thanks. That's very helpful, Mr. Crusaden. I think for us, we're highly focused on regulating the wetlands, and I want to make sure as we talk about this application that we're being laser focused on this with the understanding that, yes, there are these other factors that are zoning related and, easement, and those things we have to kind of just assume are in place, assume but trust. We're going to want you to kind of, navigate around those for us, because we're, again, just going to be laser focused on regulating the impacts to the wetlands. And so to the extent that other parties' easements and other parties' involvements are necessary, that's incumbent on you to sort of resolve as you seem to be doing. So
Understood.
it just seems a little bit more complicated than most. I guess full transparency, there's a lot of nuances. And on that vein, I think I would encourage you, as you're presenting to this board, to focus on maybe kind of topics or zones, kind of focus on, okay, here's the design element in relation to the roadway changes and the impacts of the wetlands, the design elements in regards to the, trees and things of that nature in the upper portion. And then the other consideration is the whole groundwater, stormwater treatment based on the best practice management technologies. Like break it up into bits and pieces so we're kind of tackling it in its in its parts. So Mr. Matt Connors, any further comments? You had your hand raised.
Just in regards to the plantings, Mary Rose, if you can pull up that plan real quick. Yeah, I just noticed the plantings to the west of the driveway. Is it possible, and does it, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Rose, would it make more sense to move those plantings on the east side to capture more of the runoff from the parking lot? No, I'm sorry, like basically the exact opposite of where they are of the
These,
driveway. Yep,
Wait a
yep, the ones you just, the 2, 4, 6 in a row, if you moved them on the opposite side of the driveway, like more towards the parking. Because I understand, like basically, yep. Sorry, I wish I could control your mouse, but I can't.
I know what Matthew's saying. So go up from there to the right. Nope.
Go to the right.
Along the driveway.
Yes.
Yep,
There
that
we go.
way.
Thank you,
If
Brian.
you can move those plantings over
Okay.
there, would that make more sense to capture more of the runoff from the actual parking? Because once it hits that driveway, it kind of just has a straight runway down to the road, correct?
There is a driveway exit here. This goes, these cars have to come out here. So I think Mr. Weiwei would have to comment on the plan.
Yeah, I could just embellish on that a little bit. We've already got some plantings on the east side of the access drive coming up. There's really not much more room to put any more plantings in there. And then there's also going to be a transformer pad for the facility too in that general location. And that area typically has to remain free and clear of any obstructions. I'm not sure if I understand the question with regards to the runoff from the parking. Basically, the way that the permeable pavements are set up, there is no runoff from the pavement. It's all intercepted by the pavers, by the gaps. If you were, I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at the pavers that we had out on the site today, but the water basically gets collected in those gaps between the pavers and flows down into the bedding and the reservoir system that's underneath the pavers. So there is virtually little to no runoff that comes off of the pavers.
Understood. I'm just kind of talking major storms, like maybe 2 inches within, how we've had those 2-inch events within hours. So you're saying even during those storm events, there's no chance of any sort of runoff on the property, even though you did mention earlier that you are going to raise the pitch?
Yeah, these systems and the permeabilities that are factored into those joints takes into account very intense rainfall events.
Okay.
So again, I could present some information at the public hearing that would
Yeah,
attest to
if you
that.
could do more clarification with that, that would be great. Because if I'm confused, I'm sure other people would be.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. And I think for us, we're sensitive to the upland review areas, but, just understand the impacts from the proposed development would potentially have an impact on those upland review areas. So it would just be interesting to understand what alternatives you have considered in terms of best practice storm management. It would be interesting to understand that. And what you considered and why you ruled them out. Mary Rose, with your years of experience and the complexity of this application, is there anything you feel like we haven't identified that we need to address, or is there anything we need to consider that we haven't?
We haven't had the city engineer's review, so I don't know what's going to come up in that. And if that's going to cause a bit of a rush right before the public hearing. We will get that information to you as quickly as we get it. we'll see a presentation from Soil Science Environmental Services at the public hearing, where Mr. Stevens will identify how and where he identified the wetlands, and Ms. Benno can talk about the planting plans and the loss of cover and proposed plantings and any enhancements perhaps in the areas where they need to pull out what's been dumped in the wetlands on this, adjacent to the water course on the site, if they need to enhance that area once that material is removed to prevent any more invasives from entering the site.
Great, thanks, Mary Rose. Ms. Valvo.
A question about snow removal and storage. One question I have is actually relative to Buick Avenue. As the road is getting widened, and I assume that does the city plow that street? Is a city street? And where does the snow intend to go on Buick Avenue? And then in addition, along the property itself, what's the plan for the snow storage?
Can I answer that and what's probably going to happen?
We probably need the applicant to answer that one, Mr. Connors.
Okay.
Yeah, again, the snow removal on Buick Avenue is going to be the responsibility of the city, just as it is today. So you've got the existing roadway. The city does go in there and plow that out for every snowfall event. So nothing's going to change with respect to that. The only caveat to that is that the pavement will be a little bit wider in the portions that we're showing it. So the pavement's basically getting widened out as shown on the drawings, and that would be the extent of it.
Mr. Weiwei, will you take us through again, just to help focus the conversation on those improvements on the roadway that are proposed, will you kind of take us through, an end-to-end review of the approach that you're proposing? So, for example, are there silt fences that are going to be installed to protect any construction on the roadway changes itself, to protect the wetlands that were marked in 1995? Will you take us through all that thinking?
Yes, I think Mary Rose is pulling it up, but on our soil erosion sediment control plan, we are identifying silt fencing to be placed on the south side of Buick Avenue along its entirety for the reconstructed area.
Okay, is that shown? Is that what you're showing, Mary Rose?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but going along
Yep, I can see your mouse.
the southern side of Buick Avenue, the SI designation is they're showing silt fence, I believe.
Oh, okay. It almost looks like a road. Sorry, I'm maybe not the best.
I think because of the size of the plan, it's kind of coincident with the level curb, the levels, the drain along the side of the road.
I think that's the case, Mary Rose, because again, we don't have, even with the easement to the city, that right of way is very narrow. So again, ideally, if this were, if we were reconstructing this to full city standards, that pavement would be out to 30 feet, but we just don't have the right of way to work with. And the adjoiners on both sides are private owners, so we have to work within the confines of what we have. So that pavement width is going to go out to approximately 20 feet. And with that being said, that silt fencing is going to be pushed right up against the limits of that 20 feet. So that's very important. If Mary Rose, if you can bounce back to the plan profile view that you had on there. Yep. Yeah, so if you take a look down in the profile view, you'll see that what we have for the proposed grades are mimicking the existing grades out there. So there's very little cut and fill going through that area. So in part, that was set up that way because of the limited right of way. Because if we were doing a lot of cuts or fills in that area, that would push the grading out beyond the limits of what we have to work with.
Okay, so you're saying that what I hear you just describing is that you're going to have minimal disturbance in the roadway construction.
Well, right. I mean, we're going to be basically reconstructing that road and widening it out to the 20 feet. So from the edge of the existing pavement, we are going to be pushing into the upland review area within the Buick Avenue right away. I don't know if that makes it clear for you or not.
It's a little less fuzzy, but Mr. Gradwell, I'm sure you.
Yeah, I think around that same point, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at that plan view. It's on the screen or on my screen right now. The grading's a little like incomplete in that area along that edge, say that west edge of Buick Avenue, as it goes towards the billboard. It's really hard to tell what kind of contours are in that area or what kind of grades are in that area. So I think maybe some additional contours in that area tie into, or 16 runs around there, maybe a 16 or 15, 15.5, 15 and a half is in there. There's like, it's hard to tell where the contours will end and what kind of impacts in the regulated area or upland review area will be in that area by the billboard.
Yeah, I think given the confines of what we have to work with, to get the contours in there just doesn't make any sense. So what we're holding is the edge of the pavement, and then we did have some topo shots out to the edge of the right of way. So we're confident with what we're showing in that profile view, and in terms of being with the proposed grade. You could see on there that we're basically holding the existing grade. So there's not going to be massive cuts or fills going through that area. I mean, you're talking about undulations probably in the vicinity of 1 to 3 inches. Because it's nature that once you get off that pavement area, the ground just goes up and down. But it's we're not doing anything significant in there in terms of grading.
Mr. Gradwell, did you have anything further?
Yeah, it's hard for my, in my opinion, just a little hard to tell without any contours or in between the billboard and edge of the new road. It's really hard to tell, what the impacts of that upland review area is going to be in that area. Yeah, I can understand what Mr. Weiwei's, spot grades or spot elevations, but it's hard for me to understand how far that may project without actually seeing some contours. I don't know how steep the slope is between the edge of road and edge of wetland in that area. Is it like flat, Mr. Weiwei, or is it like, or is it a couple feet drop? I can't tell based on the information you have here.
Yeah, it's pretty, again, I'm not sure how many commission members walked back off of Buick Avenue when we tried to get in there and look at where the wetlands were on the Spinnaker site. But that whole area is pretty flat. There are hummocks in there. The grades are kind of up and down. But for the most part, the grades are relatively flat through there. And I think, maybe to address, and I'm not sure if this is where you're coming from with it, but again, we have to keep all of our work within the right-of-way limits as well as the easement limits. So what you're seeing on that plan as being depicted on the south side of Buick Avenue, that is the limits of our work. We're not going beyond that because we don't have the rights to go beyond the street line. So all of our activity is delineated on that plan view that Mary Rose has up there right now. So if you're looking at that darker line on the south side of Buick Avenue, that is the limits of our work.
And
it's hard for me to tell without a section through there or some contours off the edge of pavement that tie into something.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I could do, because again, we were cognizant of this whole work area and what we have to work with. I actually have cross sections cut through that whole section. Yeah. So that might be better to look at than trying to put together a grading plan. Because again, it's like I said, everything is so flat in there, you're not going to pick up the 2-foot contours.
Yeah, that would be what I'd be looking for, Mr. Weiwei, a section through that area is to see how, yeah, your impacts may be right at the edge of that line or right away line. But a section will tell you that, and that would be good to present to the community as well.
Yeah, so I mean, we already have that done. It's in work map format, so I just have to dress it up for presentation just to get you a little more information. Mary Rose, can you just scroll down on that to get to the profile? Yeah, so if you look in the center there, and you'll see what I'm saying, that everything is pretty flattened through there. So we have a grade on the road there. It's 0.63%, which is very flat by any standard. So again, when you look at the profile view, this has an exaggerated scale of 10:1. So if I were to draw this at a 1:1 scale, that line would look horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Sounds like good clarification, and sounds like
Yep.
Mr. Weiwei, that would help us understand this proposed plan a little better. I think hearing no other questions, I think we've sufficiently surfaced the areas of interest. Unless there's anything else, we can move on. The only thing I just want to mention, I just thought of it earlier, I did request a physical hard copy of the plan. If anyone's so inclined, I'm sure the applicant can make arrangements for you to receive it. Just work through Mary Rose to do that if you're inclined. Okay, so hearing none, Mr. Crusaden, Mr. Weiwei, I think we have everything we need for this evening, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thanks
Thank you.
Thanks very
for your
much
time.
for the light walk this evening as well, and all the preparation there.
Thanks, everyone.
And Ms. Benno as well. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Item, Mary Rose, can you just put up the agenda for me?
Sorry, hold on a second. Find it. Should have changed. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, give me a second. I've got the agenda for the sidewalk. There we go. There we go.
Okay, great. Next up is new business. Mary Rose, do you want to introduce this one, please?
Sure, I'm just gonna change the share to the aerial view of the site. So you got something to look at. Mr. Chairman, this is new business item E1. It's IW 250037 at 945 North Street. It's a proposal by Bethany Farms and Nursery to reconstruct a garden center on the old Frank's Nursery site at 945 North Street, with work within 150 feet of a wetland associated with Flax Mill Brook in the Wepawag River watershed. The proposal is to remove some of the parking areas closest to the wetlands, reconstruct the building and parking areas, the entrance drives, and add stormwater management to the site, including stormwater quality basins to the rear of the building. I anticipate receiving the city engineer's review by the next meeting. This evening we have Ron Wassmer as the engineer from Connecticut Civil Group, and I believe Matt Pop from Environmental Land Solutions as the landscape architect.
Great, Mary Rose, is that the extent of the introduction?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Wassmer, do you want to take us through the application?
Sure. Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor with an office at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. I'm here representing Bethany Farms Nursery LLC. They're the owners of the property and the applicant. as Mary Rose mentioned, this is the former site of Frank's Garden Center. And on the screen, you'll see these are some snapshots that I compiled from Google Earth. And there's I think 3 of them. They date back in history. I think it's helpful to see the one that's on the screen right now is from April 2004. And it shows the extent of the, well, I'll call them improvements, the buildings, paving, etc., that are on the site. If you visit the site today, a lot of the pavement, is fractured. There's a lot of weeds growing on it, and in areas where there are paved sidewalks, it's overgrown with weeds and small shrubs. And so we wanted, partially we use these because of some of the storm water quality requirements that are required. And then Mary Rose mentioned this, but before I go too far, we submitted these plans recently. The city engineer has not had a chance to review them, nor have I had a chance to review with him. But that being set aside, we'll give you a brief overview of the project. And of course, you can ask questions, decide if you want to do a site walk. I don't need to tell you what you guys can do.
Thank you.
So again, on the screen right now is some aerial photos from Google Earth. The proposal to reconstruct this garden center utilizes the footprint that is there now. They're going to reuse the same foundation. They're not expanding the building. We are actually reducing parking and impervious surfaces. There's several record maps. I'm not sure if we submitted them, but they're maps that we obtained from planning and zoning that show various iterations of this project over the last, we'll say 30, 40 years, where they show the building, they show the parking, etc. There are wetlands on the property. It's I didn't know the name of it, but Mary Rose just said it's called the Flaxmill Brook. Is that correct, Mary Rose?
That is Flaxmill Brook. It runs from North Street down through this property, from Kozlowski Drive over to Flaxmill Lane, and then under Flaxmill Lane into the wetland.
Yeah, the brook starts on the wetlands over by Platt Tech. Funnels through that little bolt lane, I think it's called. But I mean, we're getting a little off-site at this point, so I won't focus too much on that. But anyways, along the easterly border of the property is Flaxmill Brook. It's a continuously running brook, even in the driest of times. The wetlands are primarily a riparian zone along that brook. The wetlands were flagged by William Kenny.
Yep, sorry.
I think you got a different one on there at the moment.
There we go.
That's
sorry,
okay.
I was having trouble getting the map up.
That's okay. So of the current site and the previous various iterations of this garden center, there are no stormwater drainage facilities. There's no stormwater mitigation. There's no water quality features. We're proposing stormwater mitigation. We are reducing the impervious. However, it's my understanding that reconstruction developments are to adhere to Connecticut guidelines for water quality. So that's our intention here. You can flip to the grading and drainage plan, which is probably one more sheet ahead. Actually, you know what? This is kind of busy. So let's go back one sheet and I'll just kind of give an overview of the project again. There's something red on there. I'm not sure what that is. Okay.
It's the removal of the parking lot.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the existing entrance primarily is from North Street, and the parking lots that are there are generally following along the existing parking. You'll see some lines in red that are the existing parking lots. They're dilapidated and overgrown, but the impervious pavement is there, as well as the the compacted gravel subbase. So those are being removed. There is the property is bisected by the CL&P right of way. So there's a couple. It's the high voltage lines. There happens to be a couple towers on our property. There's a communication building on our property. Obviously, this is not things that we're doing or involved with that are done by the utility company. So any activity under the power lines is really by the utility company. However, it is our land, so we do have the right to use it within reason. So we're reconstructing portions of the parking lot, but also eliminating significant portions of parking lot. So the main entrance is on North Street. The main parking lot is on North Street. There is an existing compacted gravel road, as well as a driveway apron that exits out onto Woodruff Road. We're going to utilize that again. And so that's kind of the gist of the site improvements regarding parking and building. This is not a bad plan to look at in regards to storm drainage, but we'll talk about the next plan briefly, considering that the city engineer hasn't looked at it yet. We have some storm galleys and catch basins proposed in the parking lot, in the front parking lot, that will discharge to the existing municipal storm drainage system. As a result of these galleys and catch basins, will be improving water quality as well as reducing runoff to the municipal system. To the rear of the building, we're proposing several shallow water quality ponds. From a bird's eye view, they look a little bit large/ominous, but they're quite shallow. The one where Mary Rose was pointing is only 6 inches deep. The middle one is approximately 18 inches deep, and the one at the southerly end is approximately 2 feet. So they're in close proximity to the wetlands. The ground is relatively flat out there. We propose these shallow ponds because galley systems really wouldn't work all that well back there. And we have the room to do it. And I think that this is a good system to improve water quality, take any runoff from the roof of the building or the rear portion of the parking to both reintroduce it into the groundwater through these infiltration basins, as well as improve water quality by allowing the water to sit for a short duration, 24 hours, give or take. And doesn't discharge directly to the wetlands or the water course, wetland/water course, as it currently does. So I won't get too much further into the stormwater. And we talked about the parking and the driveways, and I guess that's it for the moment. I can certainly entertain any questions. So we do have a full set of plans. Matt Pop is here this evening. There's significant landscaping involved, as well as wetland mitigation plantings around these ponds and within the ponds, as well as street trees and buffer plantings. There's a neighbor to the northwest corner. It's an existing house. It's been there forever, for a long time, just as this garden center has. So I'll entertain any questions and whatever.
Yeah, I think we'd be interested in understanding what you just described, if maybe Mr. Pop can speak to it.
Good evening, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist from Environmental Land Solutions. I prepared the landscaping plan that you see before you. Just one thing, if you could zoom out just a little bit, you would see along the streets, we have quite a number of street trees, and actually on both frontages, even down there. Um, the usually I don't use this many types of plants, but since I figure it's a nursery, they may want to kind of show off different types of species here. Most of them are native. Um, so again, it's quite a bit of street trees and trees around the site. For the water quality basins, the intent is that they would get seeded right when they get graded. So kind of before they receive any water, that they would be seeded, and hopefully some of those seeds would germinate. We also have some plugs that would be put in them. At the bottom of the plant list is the plants that go in a water quality basin. Either the last like 5 or 6, Joe Pyeweed, blue flag iris, burrweed, I think swamp milkweed go in those. And those come in just like a 2-inch plug they get put in. As I know, Ron said, the existing building there is dilapidated, it's falling apart, somewhat of a hazard. We are pulling back from the wetland and the water course back there. And again, as Ron noted, there's no real water quality treatment on site now, and we're proposing those water quality basins. So with that said, I think that this would be, enhancement to the wetland system.
Great, thanks. That's great to hear, Mr. Pop. Very encouraging. Could you just expand on, first question I had was the removal of the pavement in that area over on the right side. What's sort of the treatment of that area going to look like? It's, when you're, yeah, just talk a little bit about that.
So once that gets removed, right, currently I just show that as it would probably be seeded with just a lawn mix right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it going to be just sort of flat? There's not going to be a lot of disturbance. I mean, how is that going to be sort of finished, if that's the right word, when the pavement's taken out?
Again, it's just the pavement, comes out. We put in some topsoil
Okay.
and then just seed it. That area, since it is underneath the power line, we probably could even use. I do have a meadow mix that we could even use in there too, which might be maybe more appropriate for that area.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds interesting. Sounds
Yeah.
like all of a definitely net improvement. It's very impressive.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that often.
Mr. Matthew Connors.
For you, Mr. Chair. No, I agree. I think it's a complete net improvement. Just one small little kind of question I had was the proposed 1,500 gallon propane tank. Out of all the property, it seems like it's the closest to the wetland. Is there any possibility of placing that anyplace else?
We can certainly consider it. I mean, we put it to the rear of the building. I wouldn't call it the most attractive feature of this project. There's some small bins back there for various landscaping type stones that they will sell, mulch, etc. I'm going to take a quick scale as to where it is to see how far away. It appears to be about 80 feet away. And of course, of all the petroleum type fuels, propane is the cleanest because it doesn't leak. If it leaks, it's gone. So
I get you.
I
it
don't
was just
think
one
it has
little
much of
call
a.
out that I had.
Appreciate that, Mr. Connors. Thanks, Mr. Westmer. Appreciate that. Mr. Bradwell? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
I love the adaptive reuse of this site, making this site a a little bit better looking site for darn sure. I'm sure it'll be perform a little bit better with respect to stormwater and water quality, as Mr. Wasmer kind of described and Matt has described as well. One consideration, one thought I'm looking at with that secondary driveway off the Woodruff That's all up in the upland review area. Any consideration of maybe removing that, or is that kind of required as part of the project? Because it is in the upland review area and it is, a pretty significant paved area. Any consideration to maybe remove that out and get that pavement out of the upland review area?
Generally, the consideration was made to kind of reutilize the infrastructure that was there, provide some circulation for people, entering and leaving the site. I think primarily it's going to be used by the operations people versus the general public. So we'd prefer to keep it, but I can speak to our clients.
I think also too that if you're getting deliveries in the back from larger size trucks, it's easier to get in with that. If you come in from, North Street, making a couple of 90-degree turns back and forth, where that is, pretty much once you get into the site, it's a straight shot, and then you can loop around the building and back out.
That's 100% correct there. Coming in that front driveway would be tough with a tractor trailer.
Yeah. Appreciate the consideration, but I think it's also a balanced statute, though. I don't know if that would have any net benefit, but if you guys can consider it just as part of we're hearing this application for the first time, you obviously have our immediate support for the investment and the improvements. It's fantastic, but just good to have everyone's input. Any other initial considerations for the team?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
just the one thing maybe I'm missing it, but is there a snow shelf or snow management plan?
No, we have not done a snow management plan for this project, and I can incorporate that into future plans prior to perhaps the next meeting, but certainly prior to acting on this, we'll get a snow management plan put together.
Great.
Thank you.
This site has a lot of room to stockpile snow that's well outside of the review area. So I don't foresee it as a big problem on this. And then actually the thought did cross my mind. This is a garden center that will have minimal activity throughout the winter. So they can pile snow just about wherever they want away from the wetlands. We'll indicate it on the plan so it's part of the record, but there's not a great need to plow this property in the middle of January, February, when they really have minimal amount of customers.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Mayor Rose, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I had a question to Mr. Pop. The last time I had been on this site, and I haven't been out since we got the application, there was a fairly healthy crop of knotweed in the back of the property. Are there any plans to work on any invasives?
Matt Pop, it's still there. We could add some notes to kind of try to control that. But yeah, it definitely is still there. It's kind of behind, most of it, I would say, is underneath the right of way for the utility, overhead utility lines. But yeah, we'll add that to the plan.
Great. Oh, Mr. Bradwell.
Yeah, one last question back to that driveway and Mr. Wasmer and maybe talking with your client, if that driveway is required and really maybe helps operation of the site, could you move it, say, to the west outside of that upland review area? Just a thought. And I think you have some drainage leaving the site just to that west side as well.
Right. Certainly we'll consider it. Obviously our first inkling was to use the driveway that's there. There is an existing driveway apron there, so it minimizes having to go out into the road and cut the road open again. But I will talk with our clients about that.
Okay, so sounds like we have received the application this evening. Just to guide us through our process, we have until September 5th to make a decision. Sorry, Mayor Rose, keep me honest. What's the July 18th date?
July 18th is the deadline for petition. The first number in that grouping of 3 numbers, the first number is, if I can get the right agenda up, maybe. Nope, wrong one. Still wrong. There we
Yeah,
go.
the first number is when we received it, right?
The first number is when we receive. The second number is the 14-day, the deadline for petitions to be received for public hearing.
That's right.
And then the third set of numbers is the and I'm on the wrong one. The third set of numbers is the deadline, the 65-day deadline to have a public hearing.
Great. As it's on the agenda for this first time, is there any interest in scheduling a site walk? Asking just so that if there is, we would want to schedule that. I'm assuming there isn't. We're all pretty familiar with the property. It's not very complicated. I'm pretty comfortable with it. Just want to, again, make sure. I'm only saying this out loud because I want to make sure we're honoring this applicant's investment in the property and expediting our review process as fast as we can. And Mayor Rose, to that extent, I would suggest the applicant make a request if, for example, the engineer's review is done before the next meeting, we could entertain this motion before the public hearing. If that were something that the applicant was interested in, so that they weren't sitting behind a long, complicated review process.
Okay, I can, it's the chairman's prerogative to set the agenda.
That would
Well,
be
we appreciate that. And once we get Mr. Pedlewski's report, if we have time, we'll proceed. And if, we get it one day before your next meeting and he has comments, then we'll come back, 2 weeks later.
That sounds great. Thanks we're just trying to be as accommodative as we can on simple applications that are net improvements. Okay. Hearing no other comments, we can move on to the next agenda item. Thanks, Mr. Wassmer. Thanks, Mr. Pop, and your applicant team.
Good night.
Thank you.
Before us.
Appreciate your consideration.
You got it. Okay, moving on to item F, consideration of the minutes. Lisa did a great job as always. Do we have a motion to carry those minutes, to approve those minutes as drafted, as presented?
I'll make that motion, Brian.
Okay, great. Do we have a second on the motion?
I could second that.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker.
Aye.
Brian Black.
Aye.
Jim Connors. Jim.
Aye.
Matthew Connors.
Abstain.
Julie Valvo.
Aye.
Raymond Gradwell.
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Great. Motion carries.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Bahav had joined the meeting in the middle of that last presentation.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
Yeah, but I would like to abstain. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You're abstaining. Yes, if Rajit, if you could just acknowledge when you arrive, that would be good for the record.
Okay, sure. Yeah, since we were in the middle of presentation, I didn't bother.
Sure.
He joined the meeting
Thank
at 8:51.
Okay. Thanks for joining, Rajit.
Yeah, sorry, I got late, traffic and whatnot. So
Appreciate that.
about that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the minutes did pass. Let's see what's up next.
Next,
Staff
report. Updates are in my notes in the interest of not keeping you all here very late. Just a reminder, we do have a public hearing coming up. There seems to be a bit of public interest based on the amount of folks on the site walk this evening. If the public wishes to discuss this application with you, please direct them to the office or to the public hearing so that they can be heard, that all commissioners can hear what they have to say. Talking to the commissioner, talking to the public outside of the meeting room is considered ex parte communication. If you were to vote on an application after doing such a thing, it could, whatever our decision is, could be overturned. And it just doesn't lend itself to giving a good, honest read of the application. It seems like you're not paying attention to what the facts are. We're not all hearing the same facts that you're hearing. So if anyone wants to talk at the meeting, please direct them to the meeting. If they want to get something into the record, direct them to me. And if they continue to try to talk to you, you got to walk away from them. I'm sorry, but it may seem rude, but they're being rude to you because they're going to take away your vote at the meeting. So I'm getting some reports in from the folks that had to do annual reviews for mitigation. We'll have those for you at the next meeting. And if you have any other questions, please let me know.
Great, thanks, Mary Rose. Seeing no questions for Mary Rose, just want to acknowledge in the chair's report, really appreciate everyone's attention this evening. Great, fantastic questions. Really appreciate the interaction. And also I want to commend Mary Rose, Lisa, and the rest of the crew for a great site walk. And for the members of the public that were there, if they're listening, that was very well done. Everybody was really attentive to the rules of engagement. And I think, we all got a really good sense of the application just being hands-on. So thanks very much for all of your efforts there. It's been a long evening since 5, I'm sure even before, making your way to the public hearing, and it's now 9, so that's a lot of time, and I appreciate it. And as your chair, I sincerely appreciate your cooperation and your support. Great, and that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
You have it.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Multiple seconds. Okay, the
Pick
roll call
one.
vote. Let's give it to Gradwell.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that the next meeting is a public hearing. If you're not going to make it, please let me know.
Thanks, Mary
Would
Rose.
the public hearing be in person, or are we getting a Zoom hearing?
It'd be Zoom.
We've advertised it as a Zoom hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We could entertain those in person at some point in the future. We typically haven't. It's a good question, Mr. Gradwell. Just because we find it's difficult to get a room and everybody has the information at the same time. So
Gotcha. All right, cool.
you got it. No problem. So we have a motion on the floor. Let's do a roll call vote, Lisa.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Great. Motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Happy
evening. Bye.
4th.
Happy
Good
4th.
Good night. Happy 4th.
Lindsay, we're all set. Thank you.
Mary Rose?
Yep.
Just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm on vacation the 12th to the 19th.
All right. If you've got any questions you want to ask at the public hearing, please let me know.
All right, I appreciate it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
enjoy the vacation.
Take care, Matt.
See you guys. Thank you.
Bye.